What happens when one of America's most powerful political figures faces off against late-night television's sharpest tongue, and the conversation spirals completely out of control? Tonight, we're diving into the most explosive late-night interview that nobody saw coming, where pleasantries turned into a political battleground, and what started as routine promotion became television history. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about live television. The studio lights cast their familiar glow as Jimmy Kimmel adjusts his tie, glancing at his notes one final time. Across from him, Hillary Clinton appears poised and professional, her hands folded neatly in her lap, that practiced political smile firmly in place. The audience buzzes with anticipation, unaware they're about to witness something unprecedented. "So, Hillary," Jimmy begins, his voice carrying its usual conversational tone, "you're here promoting your new podcast series about democracy and its challenges. Tell us what inspired you to dive back into political commentary." Hillary leans forward slightly, her expression brightening. "Well, Jimmy, I think it's crucial that we continue having honest conversations about the state of our democracy. Too many people are getting their information from sources that prioritize entertainment over truth." The comment hangs in the air for a moment, and Jimmy's eyebrows raise almost imperceptibly. "Entertainment over truth," he repeats slowly. "That's interesting coming from someone appearing on a comedy show to promote their project." A slight tension ripples through the studio audience. Hillary's smile tightens just a fraction. "I think there's a difference between using humor to illuminate important issues and using it to distract from them, don't you?" Jimmy chuckles. "But there's an edge to it." "Absolutely. Though I have to ask, when you talk about sources prioritizing entertainment, are you including social media platforms where, let's be honest, politicians spend a lot of time crafting their image?" "Social media is a tool," Hillary responds, her tone becoming more measured. "How it's used depends entirely on the person wielding it. Some use it to spread conspiracy theories and division. Others use it to engage with constituents and share factual information." "Right. Factual information." Jimmy nods, then pauses dramatically. "Speaking of facts, I'm curious about your perspective on something. You've been very vocal about misinformation and its impact on elections. But I'm wondering, do you think there's ever been a time when your own party, or even you personally, might have contributed to public confusion about certain issues?" The question lands like a stone in still water. Hillary's posture straightens, and for the first time her political mask slips just slightly. "I think that's a rather loaded question, Jimmy. Are you suggesting that holding people accountable for their actions is somehow equivalent to spreading lies?" "Not at all," Jimmy replies, his voice remaining calm but his eyes sharpening. "I'm just wondering if you see any irony in criticizing misinformation while simultaneously promoting narratives that, let's say, might not tell the complete story." The audience grows quieter, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Hillary's hands, previously folded calmly, now grip the armrests of her chair. "I'm not sure what you're implying, but I've always been committed to transparency and truth in public service." Jimmy leans back in his chair, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Transparency? That's a great word. You know, I've always admired politicians who embrace real transparency, not just the kind that sounds good in sound bites." "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Hillary's voice carries a warning edge that veteran political observers would recognize immediately. "Well," Jimmy continues, seemingly oblivious to the growing tension, "I mean the kind of transparency where public figures acknowledge their mistakes openly, take responsibility without deflection, and maybe don't spend years pointing fingers at everyone else when things don't go their way." The studio has gone remarkably quiet. Even the cameramen seem to sense they're capturing something unusual. Hillary's face has gone from politician pleasant to something much more authentic, and not in a way that would please her media handlers. "I think," she says slowly, each word carefully chosen, "that you might want to be very careful about making assumptions regarding my record of public service and accountability." Jimmy's smile doesn't waver. "Oh, I'm not making assumptions. I'm asking questions. Isn't that what good journalism is supposed to do? Or do you prefer the kind of interviews where everyone just agrees with you?" The tension in the room could be cut with a knife. Hillary leans forward, her voice dropping to a more intimate, dangerous register. "Jimmy, I came here tonight as a courtesy to have a civil conversation about important issues. If you're more interested in playing gotcha games than discussing the real challenges facing our democracy, then perhaps we should reconsider how we're spending our time." Gotcha games. Jimmy laughs, but it's not his usual warm chuckle. I thought I was asking the kind of questions that journalists used to ask politicians, before they became so concerned with access and dinner party invitations. Hillary's composure is visibly cracking. Now, you know what's interesting, Jimmy? I've done thousands of interviews over the years with actual journalists who understand the difference between holding someone accountable and ambushing them with partisan talking points. Partisan talking points, Jimmy repeats, his voice rising slightly. Now that's fascinating. So asking about transparency and accountability is partisan now. I wonder what that says about your definition of objective journalism. The audience is completely silent now, watching this verbal tennis match unfold with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for traffic accidents. Hillary's media training is warring with her obvious frustration, and frustration appears to be winning. I think, she says, her voice tight with controlled anger, that you're confusing cynicism with insight and confrontation with courage. Noted. Jimmy's response comes without hesitation, and it's clear the gloves are officially off. Cynicism with insight, he repeats, nodding thoughtfully. You know what, Hillary? You might be right. Maybe I am being cynical. But when someone spends years claiming that questioning their actions is somehow an attack on democracy itself, well, that tends to make people a little skeptical. Hillary's laugh is sharp and humorless. Questioning actions and spreading conspiracy theories are two very different things, Jimmy. But I suppose when your show depends on getting viral clips, the distinction doesn't matter much. Viral clips, Jimmy says, his voice taking on a mock-serious tone. Right, because God forbid anyone actually remembers what politicians say on television. Should we all just pretend these conversations never happened once the cameras stop rolling? That's not what I said, and you know it. Hillary's voice is rising now, her carefully maintained composure finally beginning to crack in earnest. What I'm saying is that there's a responsibility that comes with having a platform, especially when you're interviewing people who've dedicated their lives to public service. Jimmy leans forward, his expression suddenly more serious than anyone in the audience has ever seen it. Public service? Let's talk about that for a minute. Do you really believe that everyone who goes into politics is there to serve the public? Or do you think maybe, just maybe, some people are there to serve themselves? The question hits like a physical blow. Hillary's face flushes, and for a moment she looks genuinely taken aback. Are you seriously questioning my motives for entering public service? I'm not questioning anything, Jimmy replies evenly. I'm asking you to answer a simple question. Do you think all politicians are motivated by public service, or do some have other priorities? Hillary pauses, clearly recognizing the trap, but unable to avoid it. Of course, not all politicians have pure motives. That's precisely why we need more accountability, more transparency, more honest conversations about what's happening in our government. Great, Jimmy says, his smile returning but with an edge that wasn't there before. So, when you talk about accountability and transparency, does that include being accountable for decisions that might have cost lives? Does it include being transparent about emails that mysteriously disappeared? Does it include taking responsibility for campaign decisions that might have handed the presidency to someone you claimed was a threat to democracy? The studio goes dead silent. Hillary's face has gone from flushed to pale, and her hands are now visibly gripping the chair arms. I think, she says slowly, her voice barely controlled, that you're crossing a line from journalism into harassment. Harassment, Jimmy repeats, his tone incredulous. So asking tough questions is harassment? Now, is that the new standard? Politicians only have to answer the questions they find comfortable. Tough questions are one thing, Hillary snaps, her composure finally shattering completely. Ambush interviews designed to create controversy are something else entirely. You invited me here under false pretenses. Jimmy's laugh is genuinely surprised. False pretenses. Hillary, this is a talk show. The pretense is that we talk. Did you expect me to send you the questions in advance with a list of approved responses? I expected basic professional courtesy, she fires back, her voice now carrying the full weight of her frustration. I expected to be treated with the respect that someone with my experience and record deserves. Respect, Jimmy says, nodding slowly. And what does respect look like to you? Does it mean never asking about Libya? Never mentioning the email server? Never questioning decisions that impacted millions of people? Because if that's your definition of respect, then maybe the problem isn't with my questions. Hillary stands up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. The action sends a visible shock through the audience, and several camera operators instinctively adjust their shots. You know what, Jimmy? I think we're done here. But Jimmy isn't finished. Oh, we're done. Just like that. You don't want to talk about public service anymore, because this is what public service actually looks like, Hillary. It's answering tough questions even when you don't want to. It's being held accountable even when it's uncomfortable. Hillary freezes halfway between standing and leaving. Her face is a mask of barely contained rage. Don't you dare lecture me about public service. I've spent my entire adult life fighting for the American people, while you've spent yours making jokes. Making jokes, Jimmy repeats, his own anger finally beginning to show. Right. Because comedy has no value in society. Because entertainers can't possibly understand real issues or ask legitimate questions. Tell me, Hillary, is that how you see everyone who isn't part of your political class, as lesser people whose opinions don't matter? That's not what I said, Hillary replies. But her voice lacks conviction. Isn't it, though? Jimmy presses. Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you think the only people qualified to question you are the ones who already agree with you. Everyone else is just spreading conspiracy theories or playing gotcha games. Hillary takes a step toward the desk, her eyes flashing with anger. You want to know what I think, Jimmy? I think you've confused being provocative with being profound. I think you've mistaken controversy for courage. And I think you're more interested in trending on social media than having a meaningful conversation. Jimmy stands up now, too, matching her energy. And I think you've confused being powerful with being right. I think you've mistaken criticism for persecution. And I think you're more interested in controlling the narrative than confronting the truth. The two face each other across the desk. The tension's so thick it's almost visible. The audience doesn't dare make a sound, sensing they're witnessing something that will be talked about for years to come. Hillary's voice drops to a whisper that somehow carries more menace than her earlier shouting. You have no idea what you're talking about. Jimmy's response is equally quiet, equally dangerous. Then enlighten me. Answer the questions. Show me where I'm wrong. Prove that all this anger isn't just because someone finally asked you something you couldn't spin. Hillary's eyes narrow to slits. And when she speaks, her voice carries decades of political battle scars. You want me to prove something to you? You think I owe you explanations? Jimmy, I've been fighting battles while you were still trying to figure out how to make people laugh at your amateur night routines. The personal attack lands hard and Jimmy's face darkens. Amateur night, he repeats slowly. Right? Because building a career from nothing, earning respect through actual work, that's amateur compared to writing political connections and family name recognition. The audience gasps audibly. This has crossed every line of television decorum, and everyone knows it. Hillary's face contorts with rage. How dare you? You know nothing about my background, my struggles, or what I've accomplished. I know what everyone knows, Jimmy shoots back, his voice rising to match hers. I know about the cattle futures. I know about the Rose Law Firm records. I know about the White House Travel Office. I know about Whitewater. Should I keep going, or do you want to tell me more about my amateur night routines? Hillary's hands are shaking now, whether from anger or something else entirely. You're reciting right-wing talking points from 30 years ago. This is exactly what I meant about entertainment over substance. 30 years ago, Jimmy says, his voice dripping with sarcasm. So, there's a statute of limitations on accountability now. How convenient. What's the cutoff, Hillary? 10 years, 20, or does it depend on how powerful you are? This is insane, Hillary says, looking around the studio as if seeking support from the crew. This isn't journalism. This isn't entertainment. This is a hit job. Jimmy laughs, but it's not pleasant. A hit job? Because I asked you questions? Because I didn't treat you like royalty? Hillary, this is what normal people call a conversation. Maybe you've been insulated from them for so long, you forgot what they sound like. Hillary whirls back to face him. Her political training completely abandoned now. Normal people. You think this is normal? You think ambushing guests and attacking their life's work is normal behavior? I think, Jimmy says, his voice deadly calm, that normal people expect their public servants to answer questions without having a meltdown. I think normal people want politicians who can handle criticism without claiming they're being persecuted. And I think normal people are tired of being lectured by someone who can't even handle a basic interview. The words hang in the air like smoke after an explosion. Hillary stares at him for a long moment, her chest rising and falling rapidly. You know what, Jimmy? You're absolutely right about one thing. This conversation is over. She turns toward the edge of the stage. But Jimmy isn't done. Running away, Hillary. Is that your strategy now? When things get tough, just walk away and blame everyone else. Hillary stops dead in her tracks. Slowly, deliberately, she turns back around. When she speaks, her voice is so quiet the microphones barely pick it up. But the venom is unmistakable. You want to know what tough is, Jimmy? Tough is spending 4 years watching everything you worked for get destroyed by someone who never should have been within 100 miles of the White House. Tough is watching democracy itself get undermined while people like you make jokes about it. Jimmy's response is immediate and cutting. And whose fault is that, Hillary? Who ran a campaign so out of touch that they lost to a reality TV star who was so confident in their inevitable victory that they didn't even bother campaigning in swing states. You want to blame everyone else, but maybe, just maybe, you should look in the mirror. The silence that follows is deafening. Hillary's face cycles through a dozen emotions before settling on something cold and final. I don't have to listen to this. No, Jimmy agrees. You don't. But the American people did have to live with the consequences of your decisions. They didn't get to walk away when things got uncomfortable. Hillary takes a step back toward the desk, her finger pointing at Jimmy like a weapon. You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you've accomplished something here tonight? All you've done is prove that you're exactly what's wrong with media today. No standards, no respect, no understanding of what real leadership looks like. Real leadership, Jimmy repeats, shaking his head. Real leadership would be owning your mistakes instead of spending years making excuses. Real leadership would be taking responsibility instead of writing books about why everyone else was wrong. Real leadership would be answering tough questions instead of having a breakdown when someone doesn't kiss your ring. Hillary's voice rises to a near shout. I have answered tough questions for decades. I have been investigated, interrogated, and attacked more than any politician in modern history. And yet, Jimmy says quietly, you still can't handle a simple conversation without losing your composure. What does that tell us about your fitness for leadership? The question is the final straw. Hillary's professional mask doesn't just slip, it shatters completely. My fitness for leadership? I was Secretary of State. I was a senator. I was First Lady. What have you ever done besides make people laugh? Jimmy's smile is sharp as a blade. I've never gotten Americans killed in Benghazi. I've never compromised national security with a private email server. I've never lost an election to someone I claimed was unfit for office. So yeah, maybe all I do is make people laugh, but at least I'm good at my job. The studio erupts not in applause, but in shocked gasps and murmurs. Several audience members are on their feet, unsure whether to flee or stay. The camera operators are looking at each other with wide eyes, wondering if they should keep rolling. Hillary stands frozen, her mouth open, clearly struggling to process what just happened. When she finally speaks, her voice is barely human. You disgusting, pathetic little man. Before Jimmy can respond, she's moving toward the edge of the stage. But as she reaches the steps, Jimmy calls out one final time. Hillary, wait. Don't. You want to promote your podcast? Isn't that why you came here tonight? She stops, turns back one last time, and her voice carries across the silent studio with crystalline clarity. Go to hell, Jimmy. And with that, she's gone, leaving Jimmy standing alone at his desk, the audience in stunned silence. And television history made. Jimmy looks directly into the camera, his expression unreadable. Well, that was unexpected, he says quietly. I guess we'll go to commercial. But as the camera fades to black, viewers at home are left with the image of a late-night host who just did something unprecedented, and the knowledge that they witnessed a moment that will be replayed, analyzed, and debated for years to come. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Was Jimmy right to press those hard questions, or did he go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories that reveal what really happens when the cameras are rolling and the gloves come off.